Now we can start working on the JS part of our component. So let's get going. We're going to grab our button, our buttons plural, with a query selector. Query selector all. So this will give us back all of the buttons on our page. We're going to grab the correct class, that's key. And since we know we also need to be using the content and toggling the ARIA hidden value, we'll grab that as well. Let's just say content sections. I feel like that's kind of descriptive. Query selector all. Oop, there we go. All right, so we have our DOM elements. And since I know we'll need to toggle, we'll need to set the values for all of the buttons as well as all of the sections. And we're going to be kind of doing something similar. I'm going to create one kind of like helper function. So let's just do function and then set initial ARIA value. It's kind of a long function name, but I like having descriptive functions so then future me isn't upset at past me about how I name my functions. So we need to say we want the elements, we want the ARIA, and we want the ARIA value. Oop, there we go. All right, so then we want to say, we want to loop over all of the elements. I'm going to do a for each elements. There we go. So then that matches our parameter for each. And then for each element, we want to say set attribute of the ARIA attribute that we send in to the ARIA value that we sent in. So now we just need to call these functions and pass them in the correct values, and it should work, hopefully. So the first one we want to pass in the buttons. We want to pass in ARIA expanded, and we want to pass in, so right now they're true, we want to set it to false. Cool. So that's kind of cool. Our styles changed. Remember we had in the CSS, we said if ARIA expanded is set to true, then the background color will be the gray. And if it's not set to true, so if it's set to false, then it'll be purple. So it looks like that's happening. Then we'll do set initial ARIA value on the content sections. And this time we're getting the ARIA hidden. And we want it to be true for the ARIA hidden. Boom. Oh, look at that. They disappeared. That's perfect. Because of how we have our styles down here. ARIA hidden true, display none. So let's just double check, because we just want to make sure we're manipulating the DOM. We want to just double check before we move on to some other stuff. So we've got the accordion button, ARIA expanded false, perfect. And then we've got, let's look at the content, ARIA hidden true. And they're all set to the same, it looks like. ARIA hidden true, ARIA hidden true. All the buttons are set to false. Cool, perfect. All right, let's exit out of this. So next, we want to actually give it the functionality of toggling, because right now this is setting the initial value when the JavaScript loads, but we can't actually, so I'm clicking on it, we can't actually toggle the content, like show it and then hide it. So the next thing we'll want to do is add like an event handler to the buttons, because that's what the users will be interacting with. So let's do accordion toggle handler. Again, it's a little descriptive, which is nice. And we want to say, I'm not going to pass in a parameter because this function is very specific. It's not really a helper function. Like we know the accordion has the buttons. We know the buttons are going to be used for the event listener. So let's just call the buttons directly in here. Buttons for each again. Button. Oops. And we'll say for each button, we want to add an event listener to it of click. And then we want like our function to be called probably toggle content. All right. So we've got our like event listener going on. We can just call it down here. And then once we have everything hooked up, it should be working. So let's make that toggle content function. And I'm going to pass in the So this is just like event. You can be whatever you want to call it, like E or event. People have different opinions on it. I just like E because it's a little shorter and it's still standard, so I think people can understand what it is, and future me will understand what it is. So here I'm going to have this function be kind of like a little holder for two other functions, because we're wanting to toggle the button RA attribute as well as the content RA attribute. So there's going to be a couple of different things that go on there. So just personally, I like to have this to house those two different things. So we're going to say toggle button, pass in the E again. Let's just say E target, because we want to pass in like whatever the target of that event is. So then if I click on this button, this function will know that it's this one, not one of these other ones that are being interacted with. Toggle content, same, we're going to pass in the event target because we'll need that later. And let's start making those functions. So we can start with toggle button. Go down here, toggle button. Probably need to call it a function so it works. And we've got, so we're passing it in the parameter here. I'm going to call it button. So then we can kind of know that, okay, we're going to pass it in, like we're interacting with the button. So we can say, we want to get the current value of the RA expanded attribute. So let's say we're going to assign it to a variable equals button.get attribute RA expanded. So this will save the RA expanded value. And then we can say we want to set that value. And we can do, so we'll do a ternary expression here. So we want to say if the current value is equal to true, then we want the set value to be false. If it's not equal to true, then like it's equal to false, then we'll want it to set it to true. All right. It's kind of a nice one-liner. It's similar to if, like this would also be the same. So like if expanded value is equal to true, oops, then we'd say have set value equal false, else set value equals true. So this is basically the same as this. I prefer this one because it's just like in one line and I'm comfortable with ternary operations, so I can like see this and understand what it is. But this is also a nice way to kind of communicate what you're doing. All right, so then we want to set the attribute of the button. How did I forget how to spell attribute? There we go. Attribute. We want to set the RA expanded attribute, and we want to set it to this set value. All right, so then when we click on a button, it'll run this toggle content, which will take us to the toggle button where we're passing the event target. And then there we'll be getting the value for RA expanded, saying if RA expanded is set to true, make it false. If RA expanded is set to false, make it true. And then we set that. So then we can be toggling those values. All right, and we're going to do something similar for the toggle content, but just a little more complicated because we have to be saying, like we're not interacting with the content because it's not visible. So we have to say if this button has been clicked, we want to toggle the values of this content that's below it, that's the sibling to it. All right, so function toggle content. And we're going to say content. I think that's fine. Like we know it's the content section. So oh, actually, that's wrong. We're not passing it the content. We're passing it the event target, which is the button. This is why naming is so important. So we're actually passing it the button. So we still want to say, like, we want to get, this time, we're not going to start by getting the, like, the button's our expanded value. We're going to get the button's ID, the button's RA control. So let's name it that. Button RA control equals button dot get attribute RA controls. Cool. All right, then we want to get the content by its ID. So we want to say like get this element by its ID. Guess what? We already have that ID, because it's this value right here. So we can say, let's just give it a variable name, content. We'll just say content. And then document.get element by ID. And it's this button ARIA control. So here, I'll open the HTML so we can see it a little bit better. So this button has an ARIA controls value of accordion resources. And this content has an ID value of accordion resources. So basically I'm saying, okay, get the ARIA controls value of the button that was just clicked, and then we want to get the corresponding content by getting its ID through that ARIA controls value. It might make a little more sense as we write it out. So we want to say, kind of similar to what we did up here. We're going to repeat it a little bit. We're going to get the hidden value. So we're going to say content get attribute ARIA hidden. So that'll give us the value of the ARIA hidden for the content. And we want to say set value again, hidden value, it equals true, true. Then set it to false. If not, set it to true. Cuckoo. And then we want to say, so we want to set the content. Set attribute ARIA hidden to the set value here. All right, I think that's all we've got to do. Now we can test it out and see if it works. Let's see, first try. Okay, I'm clicking on the button. Okay, it didn't work. That is all right. Let's see what went wrong. Button get attribute is not a function. Oh, that's probably because we named these two the same. So that's my guess so far, because it was saying it was getting into this and it didn't understand what was happening. So this one's called toggle content. We want to say maybe, let's say toggle details. And we'll change this one here too. So we're passing it the event target, the button. We're saying we want to get the attribute of ARIA controls. We want to get the element by its ID. Something here that we don't need are these quotes, because that's making it a string rather than referring to the variable. So that could also have been a problem. I guess we can try it again. All right, let's see this time. What is happening? Content. Oh, spelling. I think that's probably like 99% of my errors are because I spelled something wrong. Yes, third try it worked. Awesome. Okay, so right now we see that once the button is clicked, then it sets the button's ARIA expanded value to true. Once it's clicked again, it toggles it to false. Oop, there we go. And then when it's clicked, it also takes this content section. It toggles the ARIA hidden value to false. And then when it's clicked again, ARIA hidden is now true. All right, awesome. So we've got our working component.